humans and jinn, who inspire each other with flashy words deceptively. Had your Lord wished, they would not have done it. So leave them with what they have propagated, so that toward it may find the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter, and so they may be pleased with it, and they commit what they commit. Say, shall I seek a judge other than Allah, while it is He who has set down to you the book, while elaborated? Those whom we have given the book know that it has been sent down from your Lord with the truth. So do not be one of the skeptics. The word of the Lord has been fulfilled in truth and justice. Nothing can change His words, and He is the all-hearing, all-knowing. If you obey most of those on earth, they will lead you astray from the way of Allah. They follow nothing but conjectures, and they do nothing but summarize. Indeed, your Lord knows best those who straighten His way, and He knows best those who are guided. Eat from that over which Allah's name has been mentioned, if you are believers in His signs. Why should you not eat that over which Allah's name has been mentioned, while He has already elaborated for you whatever He has forbidden for you, excepting what you may be compelled to eat? Indeed, many misled others by their fancies without any knowledge. Indeed, your Lord knows best transgressors. When as having sinned and the evil one. Indeed, those who commit sins shall be required for what they used to commit. Do not eat anything of that over which Allah's name will not be mentioned, and that is indeed transgression. Indeed, the Satans inspire their friends to dispute with you, and if you obey them, you will indeed be polytheists. Is He who was like us, then He gave Him life, and provided Him with the light by which He walks among the people, like one who dwells in the lives which He cannot leave? So the faithlessness is thus presented as decorous, which they have been doing. Thus have we installed in every town its major criminals, that they may plot therein. Yet they do not plot except against their own soul, but they are not aware. And when a sign comes to them, they say, we will not believe until we are given the lights of what was given to Allah's apostles. Allah knows best when soon the majority will be visited by a degradation before Allah and a severe punishment because of the plots they used to devise. Whoever Allah desires to guide, He will express to Islam, and whoever He desires to lead astray, He makes his best narrow and astray him, as if he were climbing to a height. Thus does Allah the spiritual defilement on those who do not have faith. This is the straight path of your Lord. We have already elaborated the signs of people who take admiration. For them shall be the abode of peace near their Lord, and He will be their guardian because of what they used to do. On the day He will gather them all together, He will say, O company of jinn, you claim many of the humans. Their friends from amongst the humans will say, O Lord, we used each other, and we completed our term which you had appointed for us. He will say, the fire is your abode, to remain in it forever, except what Allah may wish. Indeed, your Lord is all wise, all knowing. That is how we get the wrongdoers one another's friends because of what they used to earn. O company of the jinn and humans, did they not come to you, apostles from yourselves, accounting to you my signs and warning of the account of this day? They will say, we testify against ourselves. The life of this world has deceived them, and they will testify against themselves that they had been faithless.
Last one.
This is because your Lord would have never destroyed the towns justly, while their people were unaware.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This set of verses will bring 2 or 3 themes very clearly, emphatically to be considered, and they will stare us in the face. We need to really consider them and think through them now and, of course, later on. Now, the Prophet is being told that, look, we will change their hearts. They're asking you for all these signs, but don't be dismayed, disheartened if we don't send these signs. Because even if we were to send the signs, it will not benefit them because we can change their inner self, in which case any sign that comes to them will be of no use. Now here, we can certainly see the psychology of the Prophet being impactful within the revelation. Now through that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the personal state of the Prophet, and through that He is also giving a higher truth for everyone to reflect upon. What follows is something striking, and we need to understand. Now, there are 2 or 3 points that we've been making again and again, that the Mufassirin wish to absolve God of what God is saying about himself, with the fear that they will make God look like a transgressor by making him appear as somebody who is predetermining misguidance, as opposed to asking a question that if I were to leave my assumptions to one side, what does the verse say within itself? And is there a broader framework in which it might make further sense? So here, as we go into these verses, we will certainly find one or two things coming out very clearly. That who is the one who is talking to us in the Quran? Where does God come in as direct speech? Where is God referred to as the overriding principle? Then we will be faced with another set of questions. One of the most prominent ones that comes through these verses is that it is an organized, well-determined system. It's supposed to be the way it is. Now, these verses will say, whoever Allah wants, Allah will guide. Whoever Allah wants, Allah will misguide, except if Allah wants, except if Allah does this. So whoever is speaking to the Prophet here, which is Allah, but I make this distinction that Allah speaks directly and God is speaking through agency. When God is speaking through agency, God is above that agency, and that agency that is speaking as the mouthpiece of God with utter reverence holds God beyond whatever it's saying. So it's not that that's God, but yet it is on behalf of God and not God himself directly. So we will see that these verses are talking about determinism, that it's already determined. This is the way it is, and we will find across the world, this is exactly a depiction of the world in which we exist. However, what is happening here is that we will see the state of belief, the state of disbelief, themselves are transient. Whoever Allah wills, Allah will constrict their hearts. Whoever Allah wills, Allah will open their hearts. But this in no way means that those with their hearts open will eventually, or by their hearts being opened, that they will find salvation. Until they find salvation through it. And there is no way to say that the one whose heart is constricted, that through the constriction of the heart, they will be condemned. Because this is talking about the Meccans, bear in mind. Before the migration of the Prophet, they all turned into Muslims. And that was a promise of God, that if they were to turn into Muslims, that Allah will forgive all their previous transgressions. So the very people who are being condemned in these verses, and who are being described and depicted, were the people who, on the face of it, attained salvation through embracing Islam, apart from those who died in that state. Can you see that? So we find a very, very different picture from the simplistic one that is painted by the theologian Mufassir. And I will explain that as we go along. Now, if we were to cause to descend upon them angels, the dead spoke with them, and we raised everything in front of them, they will not believe. So, Prophet, don't be dismayed. Why? Except if Allah wills. So you see, whoever is saying this on behalf of God is holding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in utmost reverence. That if Allah wills, then yes, they will believe. So your task is to deliver this message, to appreciate the workings of this universe, to understand the greater picture, and not be disheartened from the situation that you're seeing in front of you, because this is how it's meant to be. Now Allah, this is as far as we can see, but if Allah wants, He can immediately intervene, and He can change any factor. Even we don't know what He's going to do. So if these are angels conveying the truth on behalf of Allah, then they're making a grand exception that, look, this is what we are seeing in the eternal scheme. But even there's a principle of intervention at any point, and there is no surety that any of us can have, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who is the discerning one here. Now, if you look at the tafsir literature, they will state here, and I'm going to give this example, we'll use it again afterwards, that if Allah were to will, does that mean that then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is compelling faith within the hearts. If that is the case, then in that case, there is a finger pointing to God's justice. That arbitrarily you chose one to guide and the other one to misguide. So how much of responsibility is on any one of the two? Yes? How much worth does one have for reward, and how much responsibility does the other have for evil deeds that have brought them to a point of damnation? So the Mufassir's rebuttal here is that, well, no. If somebody does good, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepares the ground. And you see, in this way, they are removing God from what the verse is saying. The verse is giving an immediate agency, right, discretion to God. But this interpretation is placing God in a causative system, that God himself will act only in accordance with what is happening there. So then in that case, if you were to take that explanation, that the verse does not make sense. The verse is talking within a causative cycle, that they will not believe because their hearts have come to that point, where whatever you show them, they will interpret in a different way. So for example, you find a skeptic, no matter what you show to that skeptic, they will have their model of interpretation. Yes, they're good people, but I'm just trying to express that when somebody is operating within a model, you can say, look, this is a sign, this is an argument. They also like interpret it like this in this model. So this is what this verse is saying. No matter what you do, no matter how many signs you show, they will interpret it within their own scheme, except if Allah wants. So if except if Allah wants means that there is no causative cycle there, and Allah can intervene within the causative cycle. What I say here is that if a person is placed as a believer, another one is a disbeliever, this believing position and disbelieving position in themselves are arbitrary. It is that point of neutrality within me and you, and this needs to be explained. The one that is interacting with this situation, that is the point of freedom. Yes? And that can go either way, whether within belief or within disbelief. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and none feels safe of the deception of God except for the evildoers. And these verses are meant to humble us and to say to Allah that, oh Lord, I am at this point in time a believer. Keep me as such. And hence we say, Ihdina Siratal Mustaqim. Keep me or direct me along the right path or straight path. We have actually, Sirat al-Mustaqim is a long discussion within itself. Or upon this Sirat al-Mustaqim. If there was assurance that once we are believers, we will go towards salvation, then that would not be the case. We would not be pleading with God 10 times. How many rakats do we? How many rakats in how many rakats? 2, yeah, 5 prayers, right? So 10 times. So 10 times we state this. That Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. So it's meant to humble us. That look, there is something else going on. And Mufassirin, at least the theologian Mufassir, has got half of the story. Now look at the next verse. And similarly, we have made for every prophet enemies of the devils of man and jinn. Now again, Shaitan, we've been talking about this again and again, that Shaitan is a broader reality than Iblis. Iblis can be termed as the king of Shayateen. Yes? But Iblis and Shaitan are not one and the same, they're not synonymous. Iblis is a Shaitan. Not Shaitan is Iblis. Yes? A portion of Shaitan reflects itself as Iblis. But the real Shaitan is another agency, another disposition altogether. The disposition that can waywardly see things, everything. So now, if we say, the verse is saying we have made enemies, what does that mean? That we have determined it, doesn't it? And that is exactly how it is. That is exactly how life is. You will find this all the time. There will always be these dynamics within the community. You will find reformers, enlightened people. You will find people who are antagonistic of them. And the people who are their antagonizers, they will always have this waywardness within them. Now that could be me myself. And I fall within the category of the people who who are amongst the shayateen of man and jinn. But it's also expressing an immediate reality that the Prophet was facing there. يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ, in which some of them are subtly inspiring others. Wahi is to gesture and to subtly inspire. There are some more things that these verses will reveal that will make us very mindful about our own inner psychological state. Now the Prophet obviously is observing all of this. Yes? And he is saying, well, why aren't they understanding the clearest of signs that are being given to them? Now, sometimes we actually see this in our life. We find a congregation of people, but their minds are closed as anything. Their minds are just not open. No matter how clear the evidences come, somebody who comes and talks down on them, they just take that as word. And then you think it's amazing that clear-cut ABC argument is given, but nothing makes any sense to them. It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's that they are predisposed to a certain outlook. And when they are predisposed to that outlook, nothing else makes sense. So now, if the Prophet is giving logical truths, I can read this and see what it's saying. That's it. That's simple as that. And that would distort that person's perception of what the Prophet is saying. Because in me making that gesture, there is a whole story behind that. There are many reference points that me and that person share. All I need to do is to make a little gesture and everything that the Prophet is saying gets queued up. So in any case, Allah is saying to the Prophet that look, this has always been the case. But why has it always been the case? There is a need for it to be the case. Because had that not been the case, the truth would not be further refined, would not be explicated any further. And had that not been the case, any information can come and go unchecked. But because this is the case, these are the dynamics, they bring the truth out further within a more glorious state. It's quite amazing. When you look at the community, you will see that these have been the antagonizers. Yes? But they had to be there. They have served an equally grand purpose as the reformer himself, for had it not been for them, the reformer would not have had the resolve, nor would the people with them have had that resolve, and that sophistication would have been created. So it's all there. However, none of this, when we analyze it accurately, is a sign of condemnation, damnation, or salvation. Salvation and damnation has its own processes for both. As we saw in the case of the Meccans. They changed. As we see in the case of Hussein Ali, many people defected. They were belonging in this verse. They were the shayateen. They were the antagonizers. And immediately there's a change. Who had to be there to create that course for Hussein Ali? He played a marvelous role whilst being in the opposite camp. His own salvation called him. He died as the one with salvation, played the role that was supposed to be played by the antagonizer, created this reality known as Hussein Ali, which serves as a guiding light for all of us. It's a wonderful world if we just open up to it. Verse 114. Now, this verse is actually addressing the Jews who are there. Yes? And they are also, obviously, the verse is saying to the Prophet that look, guidance that you have is the best one. It's reminding the Prophet, should I follow other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a decisive judge? And whilst he is the one who has sent the book. Now you see, the thing is that this is a rebuttal of the Meccans. Because obviously there was a Jewish and Christian influence to an extent when they were interacting. And this verse is saying, and we all say this, think back in our own lives. On many occasions, there's a person there who is apparently denying, and we say that he knows the truth well within himself, even though he seeks to deny it. Not that this statement of mine is going to be impactful on that person at all, because he's going to deny it. But it is a need within me to clarify this position that he knows what I'm saying very well, even though he seeks to deny it. There is no proof that they will adhere by this statement, but there's a need inside me to state this. Now, how wonderfully Quran falls within a human context. It's using human sentiments, human language, human responses. And if we can read more into it within the human context, it actually becomes more charming. وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا لَا مُبَدِّلَ لِكَلِمَاتِهِ. Now there was a subtle thing that this Quran has not been revealed, it's not the true Quran. So it says, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed it, you all know He has. And the verse says, the word of your Lord has been completed. It is as if He had decided this. Yes? On many occasions, Quran uses this language. And the word of your Lord was true in the case of the Israelites. It is as if there are certain markers that God has decided, and the agents is conveying this on behalf of God. Say, yes, this was done, this was done, this was done. On many occasions, they say, well, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Those nations were destroyed, their accounts were shut, well, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, a successful completion. It was as executed as planned. Yes? So there's something quite different going on if we can start reading the Quran within the human context. Look at the next verse. He's saying to the Prophet, now obviously the Prophet is being challenged here, yes? That if you were to follow majority of those who are upon the face of the earth, they will misguide you from the course of God. Look at the verse after, the finishing of the verse. They but follow a conjecture. Now this has been true for mankind in every era, in every moment of its existence. Allah is saying, if you follow majority of those who are upon the earth, yes, what the angels are saying is, because majority of them are following nothing but a conjecture, yes, a guess. That verse, for it to be true today, it means that majority of the people on the face of this earth are following something about which they have no certitude. That includes the 2 billion Muslims. And that includes the majority of 200 million Shia. And that includes the majority of Khoja. That includes the majority of one household. If we look into it very, very carefully, we find that actually it's absolutely true. Our belief systems are based around false security. Right? If I believe this, am I within the safety net? The answer is yes, blah, blah, blah. And now, because our disposition is such that we are very insecure, we will ask for certain proofs that can satisfy us at a very minimum level. So you will say, yes, this religion is true because the Prophet has said this. There is no further inquiry as to did the Prophet say this. And then, if the Prophet had said this, then does it mean what you have deduced? And if it means what you have deduced, then the other group is proving and substantiating their faith equally by another statement of the Prophet, and it means this. You see that. The only position of truth that I have understood now from reciting the Quran and becoming ripe old now is that there is no truth until a person admits that they don't know the truth. There is no such thing as a safety net. This world was never that place. If this world was a place of a safety net, we wouldn't be here. This world is a place that can lead us to eternal damnation. So there's no safety net in this world. And in fact, the journey, but I will say this much, that Allah does make provision within the Quran, that look, if you're good, if you're sincere, then that's the minimum requirement for me. You don't have to, in a sophisticated manner, know the truth. But sincerity means what? A state of openness to the truth as and when and how it's received. Can you see that? But if you look at the majority of the people, Shia, Ithna Shri, all of them, yes, majority of them, these people, as are the Sunnis, as are the Christians, as are the Hindus, as are the Jews, these people are insecure people. They need minimum evidence which may not make sense inside themselves, but it satisfies them. So now, the most feeble of arguments is, if I follow this man in whatever they say, even if I'm wrong, even if he's wrong, am I absolved? And the answer is yes, you're absolved. That's it, and I'm satisfied with that. Tell me, there is a pit of hell waiting there. Why would anybody want to risk such a perilous fate on something so frail? Why? It's like saying, this ship, I can see that it is there and that ship is there. I don't know, the ocean is vast, it's stormy. If you tell me that this ship is fine, I'll ascend upon it without inquiring at all. Do you know anything about the ship in the way that the ship is? Yes? So that I know how to place my bets and take my risks. But because you're saying it, I'll climb aboard it. That's the way life has become. So this is what, and I think every human being has to ask himself, do I have a state of certitude? The answer is no. I always tell myself, I have gotten tired of certitude to the extent that I gave it up 12 years ago. I said, there is no certitude, O Lord, take me as and how you want. Whatever you want, yes? In whichever color, in whichever form, in whichever mode you bring me out, it's fine. There is no more certitude left here. Here in this verse, I believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a universal truth that the majority of the people are merely following guesswork because none of them are open to the truth as the truth is. I often say this, that 99% of the people or 95% of the people end up debating for the truth of the religion of their birth, which means that none of the religions are true at all for them. Yes? Now the next verse, now eat from what Allah's name has been mentioned upon if you are believers. Now here, eat here, kulu is a command, right? So Faqih discusses this, that here command is not, it's wajib on you to eat. It means it's permissible because Allah has said, look, you can't eat animals sacrificed from other than Allah, yes? You can't eat animals that have died. The pagans had this belief that if I cut open an animal, and if it becomes lawful for me to eat, then the animal that dies naturally has been killed by God. So by priority, I want to be eating that animal. Can you see that? So here, these are the verses that have come to address that issue and many other issues. So now eat. It's permissible for you to eat. Those animals upon whom the name of Allah has been recited means they are slaughtered properly. Yes? And what is wrong with you that you do not eat from those animals that Allah's name has been mentioned upon? Because the whole argument there was that animals in their minds are one or two things, right? That those animals that have died, they have been killed by Allah and they were frowning upon that particular practice. So in response, but these are not killed in the sense of they did not die naturally. These have been killed properly. And this is lawful for you to eat. So eat. There's nothing wrong with it. Eat. It's good for you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already explained what is haram on you apart from whenever there is a need, desperate need. Now, most of them will misguide through their whims without any knowledge. He's talking about these sort of formulations that I kill this, I can eat by priority, I can eat what Allah kills. Yes? Allah kills us in natural death. Can you see that? And Allah is saying, no, with my name, slaughter it and then eat, and don't hesitate from eating that just because of their practice. So here, one of the very important things that we need to know is that the way they were reasoning, Allah is saying that their reasoning here is nothing but misguidance, and majority of them are misguided. You can see immediately that this verse cannot be true for the world at large. It was true in the context in which it came. Yes? So now, if we have a group of people who bear open animosity towards a particular thing, then for those groups of people, this verse will be true. The assumption that the verse of the Quran is eternal would be a misleading one here. It has to be seen in its own context. Now, many used to think within Arabia that if you were to commit a crime openly, then that constitutes a crime. But if you were to conceal yourself and commit that crime, it would not constitute a similar crime. So, if you were to eat something openly, then that constitutes a crime. But if you were to do it secretly, that would not constitute a crime. Similarly, other types of sins, they would always say if you do it openly, it's a crime because you're caught. If you do it secretly, it's not a crime because you're not caught. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in different parameters here. He's saying, look, abstain from sin, that which is apparent and that which is hidden. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, beyond the judicial system, I am seeing you wherever you are. And beyond the world, I am the one to whom you are answerable. However, he's going a step further. If we look at these verses carefully, indeed, those people who earn sin shall be requited with that sin. What that means is, we have to work through this one, yes? That on the one hand, if I see you doing this, I will punish you. So do it in a way I can't see you. That's one level of system of justice, yes? We all have that, it's acceptable, yes? If I find you doing this again, I will, the teacher says that, right? If I see you doing this again, what does that mean? That what, if I don't see you, there's nothing I can do about it. So it doesn't constitute a crime in terms of punishment from the teacher, yes? We have that. On the other hand, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, well, look, I'm seeing you at all points. So you can't commit this crime because I will get you wherever you are. However, the latter part of the verse gives a different story. That whoever sins shall receive its punishment. What that means here is that when a person sins, they are creating their own damnation. It is not a punishment that is imposed externally. Can you see that? So, if a person steals, they are caught, convicted. Can you see that? But that is external. In this scheme, it goes a bit further. Once a person steals, they have already condemned themselves by regression within their soul and a movement away from God. It's like somebody taking hard drugs. When a person takes hard drugs, they damage themselves immediately, whether they are caught or not. So now when the person is consuming drugs, it's not a case of if I catch you, I will punish you. As soon as you smoke, you'll be punished, because that thing is a punishment within itself. That is the level to which God is spoken. That sins and transgressions are a punishment unto themselves. On top of that, you will have to answer to me, and there will be a formal judgment. And on top of that, if you are caught doing it, you will be punished. So there's 3 types of punishments. Yes? The most intimate is the last one that God explains. Now, the verses, if we join them, do not eat from that upon which the name of God has not been mentioned, right? Now, if you look at verses of the Quran, and that's why some of the Sunni fiqh has this, that if you have meat in front of you, say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and you can consume it, because the name of God has been mentioned upon it. Now, this is the way it is. If the name of idols is mentioned upon the meat, when it's slaughtered in the same process, yes? But it's not lawful. So Allah is saying that is not lawful. On the other hand, Allah is saying dead animals are not lawful. Very clearly, yes? Swine is not lawful. Blood is not lawful, right? We've studied all of that. On the other hand, there's a condition that mention the name of God upon meat at slaughtering, and then it becomes lawful. Now, if you look at the ahadith, a person said to the Imam, well, I forgot to face the Qibla. I said, it's fine. Another one said, I forgot to mention the name of Allah. He said, it's fine. Eat it. It's fine, it's in halal. So long as the animal was dead. When we are hunting, we just say Bismillah and release the animal, the dog, right, to go and hunt. Now the dog has killed the animal. By the time we get there, the animal is dead, we slaughter it, let the blood gush, it's lawful. We said Bismillah in the beginning. There's no Qibla or any direction. What does that show? That essentially, Qibla, the manner of killing initially, none of these are essential factors. But it seems from the verse that one of the essential factors is the animal should not be sacrificed on the name of other than God. That's one of the essential factors. Another one is that the animal should not die out of shock prior to be slaughtered or prior to be hunted. These are essential factors. They have some physical properties which are detrimental. But mentioning the name of other than God is something that we still have to reveal. Why is it detrimental? Was this an accidental thing that community was steeped in idolatry, and therefore to purge the community of that, there was this prohibition? Just as in the Hadith literature, there is prohibition of drawing things that possess a spirit. Remember the Hadith that says, he who draws something, Allah will ask him to blow spirit into it on the day of Qiyamah. Or making statues, because the community was steeped in idolatry. Now the context is not there. Of course, our ulama say that drawing the picture is haram, some of them, but taking the photograph is not haram because you're not drawing it. And then you think, well, what's the difference between drawing a picture and taking the photograph? It's the same thing. I can have somebody paint me on a canvas or take a picture of mine. Isn't it the same thing? No. That one was drawn, so there is some property in drawing, but back in the day there weren't any cameras. Can you see that? So here the context has gone all together. Is drawing, taking pictures haram or not? The answer is, well, it might not be haram. So here we come to this particular position. Was there a physical or a spiritual value, or was it the idolatry that Allah wanted to remove from the community and hence the prohibition? Let's say both of them were the case. So we ask this question, that what about the mentioning of the name of God, therefore? Was it in response to the mentioning of the names of the idols? Or was it a facet essential within itself? Are you getting that? If it's a facet essential within itself, then it cannot be foregone. Just like dead animal. Ali ibn Abi Talib is very, very clear that if the animal dies, you can't eat it. It shows essentiality about that, in line with the Quran. But on occasions when people have forgotten to face Qibla and forgotten to utter the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was quite accommodating of that situation. It's fine, you can eat it. Why did he do this? Was it because he did not see that that person had other than Allah in his heart? Or was it because that the context of mentioning the names of idols had already removed? And the minimum requirement was the physical requirement that the blood is drained out of the body and the animal is slaughtered and it did not die. By the way, by these verses, if you look at the verses of Ma'idah and others, stunning is perfectly fine. Yes, provided that the animal doesn't die. Stunning is perfectly fine because if an animal were to fall, the pagans used to sacrifice animal by pushing them off a cliff. If you got there in time and slaughtered it before it died, it's halal. So if an animal, if you were to impact an animal at a great speed, a deer, let us say, the deer has been stunned naturally. Prior to its death, if you were to be able to slaughter it, it's halal. So stunning and things like that are not a problem. So it appears, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another verse, that do not eat that upon which the name of Allah is already mentioned. We think here that the context was extremely influential. Because if that wasn't the case, then Ali ibn Abi Talib would never have accommodated those situations. The fact that he accommodated them shows it was an essential facet, unlike dead animals, which was essential. Yes, the way pig or blood is essential. This wasn't essential. So if that's the case, then we go to that hadith where Ali ibn Abi Talib was it, or one of the most, I think it was Muhammad, who allowed the meat slaughtered by Jews to be consumed. Now, in today's kosher practice, they're very, very clean, just like the Muslims. The only thing is that the name is pronounced once and several animals are slaughtered. Here you can clearly see that it's not a case of not pronouncing the name, it's a question of offering that animal for Allah. Yes, in one intention they're doing many. Can you see that? So by priority, kosher meat ought to be allowed. It's not dead, it's slaughtered, it's not sacrificed other than the name of Allah, and the name of Allah has been mentioned. The name of Allah here, therefore, does not mean Allah by a Muslim, but Allah as Allah, the one God of all, as opposed to any idol. Yes? So just now I've carried a bit of a discussion for you here. The verse here is, and the one who is dead, and we gave him life, and we made for him light with which he walks amongst people. Is he the same like the one who is of his like in dire darknesses, and he's not coming out of it? Now, it is Hamza and Abu Jahl. Hamza was contemplating Islam, wasn't sure whether he should accept it or not, the uncle of the Prophet. He went out to hunt and met Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl said something, Hamza punched him on the nose, his nose bled. Now, Abu Jahl was very, very renowned, revered, a very lofty position within the community, but he dared not say anything to Hamza. Hamza came to the Prophet and embraced Islam. Abu Jahl stayed where he was. The words are interesting in the Quran. He is calling Hamza Mayyit, dead. Can you see that? And we gave him life. And with life he walks amongst people. This dead, if you go back to our analysis time and again, that Allah says that you are dead, we gave you life. Death precedes life, yes? The state of death, I was, but I was in the state of death. I am in the state of life. I will be in the state of death. I will be in the state of life. But every life seems to be a progression on the previous life, and every death seems to be a progression from the previous death. But the first death that me and you have had is not in our original state, but in our creative state here. I've discussed this in Pakistan lectures and some others. That initially we were not life or death. Yes? None of the states were touching us apart from the way broadly we can describe death. But the real death is when we came into initiated into this creation. Now that death is potential but lack of perception and ability. Yes? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing a person in this life without guidance as being in a state of death. Why? Because life is perception. But what type of perception? A perception that is actualizing the person from within. It is a student that opens the book and doesn't read it. It is a student that reads the book, doesn't understand it. It is a person who has the ability to understand, but is mindless and doesn't want to understand, is absent-minded. His mind is absent. These are the states that are being described as mayyit. The potential is there, the potential is not being actualized at all. I see that. So Hamza has this potential. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actualizes it. So now he sees the truth and grows through it, and that is the definition of life. Growth through ability and perception. Can you see that? And he walks with light amongst people. So light means that not only he is now growing, but amongst people with light means it becomes exemplary. Is he the same as one who is in dire darknesses? The plural is used. The only way I can understand this is that light is singular, because light is something that is evolutionary. Yes, it is singular, but light, I suppose, here is singular because in the evolutionary trend, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends here is the wholesome evolution where all the faculties are growing together with each other. Yes? In a centralized way. But darknesses mean all the different attitudes, sentiments, emotional pull, intellectual turmoil that we have at every point, a different level of veil is put upon a person. Yes, at every level. Here it's an emotional one, here it's an intellectual one, there is one of arrogance, so on and so forth. In the same way, we have made in every village its chiefs to be criminals, so that they create deception therein. They do not deceive but themselves and they do not understand. Again, you see this verse, it asks for a model of interpretation. We have made in every village, and you will find the same thing. Tell me, one prime minister that is God-fearing, as soon as a person ascends to a position of authority, they become corrupted. They automatically become corrupted. It's amazing. Have you seen anybody free of this? It's a phenomenal cycle. So here, these people were made that, but that doesn't mean that that sealed their fate of that nation, because they converted to Islam, right? Now, within Islam, every village will have Muslim leaders who will be people who cause deception, according to this verse. Can you see that? And that is so true. It is a law of humanity. But the thing to remember here is that it's predetermined stages. But these predetermined stages are external and they do not, what? Seal the fate of the person as being damned. Because at every point there is that point of neutrality, as we discussed in Turkey, that can interact very differently. Now there were some people who were saying, like Abu Jahl, that I will not believe until Allah reveals unto me. Yes? Because they said we've always been contending against the Hashimis. Or it was the great thinker of the Meccans, yes, who said, I'm the most brilliant person here, I should be revealed upon, and then I will believe in it. Allah says, I know where to put my risalah. Well, this verse needs to be dealt with. Now, he who Allah wants to guide, Allah opens his heart and chest to Islam. Now, I will only take the aid of the hadith of the Prophet. Allah says, and the Prophet was asked, well, is this true? He said, yes. He said, how? He said, Yaqdifullah, what is it? Allah casts in the heart his light of whoever he wants. Yes? Allah casts his light in the heart of whoever he wants. So it seems to be very arbitrary. The Mufassirin are inclined to integrate this in the consecutive cycle, that if you do good, then Allah SWT will do this for you. But I ask a fundamental question, why should I do good in the first place? Until Allah inspires me. Can you see that? It's a circular thing. It goes back to the same question. It's not responding at all. Are you saying this? Their answer is that if a person has to do some good before Allah inspires them, Allah can't arbitrarily just choose one. I'll say, but if a person were to do some good, how did he do that good and who inspired him to do that little good? Can you see that? So you're back in the same place. So this means something very different. He who Allah wants, he can open his chest to Islam. Now, the Prophet said, Allah puts his light into whoever's heart he wants. Yes? The Prophet was asked, well, what does that mean? He said that in that case they become prepared for death. They abandon the world. They look forward to the hereafter. So here, Islam's submission does not mean intellectual appreciation. It's a psychological disposition in which the true heart is submitting to Allah. And that's why he's talking about sabr. Because one is digesting knowledge and being open to the truth. The other one is becoming submitted to the truth in a wholesome manner in which I am submitting myself to the truth as it is in the way that I will give into it, not contemplate. There's a big difference between intellectually understanding something and giving ourselves up to it. Yes? And the one Allah wishes to misguide will make his heart constricted as if he's ascending a tall mountain. Now, I'm just saying, look at this eternal truth. You know, when you ascend the mountain, you do feel a sense of constriction because of the variation of pressure. Yes? And the change of ratio in oxygen and nitrogen, right? You find that oxygen?
The ratio is the same, but the amount is less.
Yeah, okay. So the amount is less because of the pressure. Yeah? Varying pressure, and then you feel constriction. Although those people would never have understood this, right? But the main question here is, look at this eternal truth that Allah SWT gives. You know, as little liners, one or two words. That just shows how phenomenal the Quran is. It's
Nominally, can change the whole perspective of a person again and again and again. However, you see this verse, it clearly shows that Allah is acting through His own personal discretion. However, we need to understand that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens somebody's heart or constricts somebody's heart, both of them are meant to find the truth through those states. Can you see that? Iblis's heart is opened, right? Damnation falls upon the people of Iblis. Iblis is elevated to the heavens. At that point, he fails in the biggest way. Imagine. Somebody's heart is concealed. In the state of damnation, it opens up. They take that opportunity in the state of salvation. None of this seals the fate of damnation and of salvation. Otherwise, life would not continue. The life would end. Can you see that? So long as there's a breath, there's a possibility we can go anyway. Yeah? Now, the final verses that we're going towards here is the day when we raise them all together, we say to the jinn, indeed you outnumbered the man. Now, the Prophet of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, said that to 1,000 people who will go to hell, one person will go to heaven. And the people began to weep and cry. So there is a lot of hope for the people who are humans, to the extent that Bahman Pusha Bahadur quoted this in Arafah last year. He said that one of our imams of the mainstream, the fiqh imams, he said, indeed, most fortunate is he who finds salvation. Imam Sadiq said, I don't say that. I say, most wretched is one who doesn't find salvation. La yaslaha illa al-ashqa. Yes? In Surah Ala as well. The most wretched will go into hell. Otherwise, everybody else is going to heaven. Can you see that? So even though you find this verse, we find two or three things. That man and jinn outnumbered man. So man have a lot of hope, human beings. In any case, the human beings will say the jinn will remain silent. That some of us enjoyed, yes, the company of the others until we came to a state that you had appointed for us. At this point, the minds have opened up. Allah will say, hell is a resting place for all of you. Now look at these verses. Look at the words. Khalidina fiha. Khalidin means what? Eternally abiding therein. Yes? This is what Allah is saying. Qala. He said. Look at how the verse changes. Illa masha'Allah. Except for what Allah. Now, how will Allah talk about himself and then talk exempt himself? It shows that the narrator here is narrating an event that's going to happen. In that narration, there is speech mark. Yes? Oh jinn, you outnumbered man. Man will say, some of us enjoy the company of others. He, God, will say there. Yes? Qala. On the first hand, it was, oh man, oh jinn, you increased in numbers to man. Is God speaking directly? Now God has been brought in as a third person. He said, hell is the resting place for all of you, abiding therein for eternity. And then there's actually except what Allah wills. He did not say except what Allah wills, because except what I will. So here the end of speech mark, and the narrator is saying except for Allah, what Allah wills. Can you see that? How amazing is this? It shows a state of absolute non-surety. Anything can happen and everything can happen. Doesn't that humble the human mind so totally? That even after saying, hell, abide therein for eternity, except for Allah. Imagine. Doesn't that cut us down to size and humbleness? I'm finishing. Yeah? And doesn't that just leave it all open? Doesn't that just show what is going on and what is the purpose? Doesn't that want to initiate people into the journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The individual personal journeys of love to Allah. Let me discover. It's verses like these that take away sleep. Yes? They really do. It's verses like this that change your Islam totally, completely today. Anyway, I will stop here and just finish off the last verse. He's saying to the jinn, did prophets not come to you? There's a whole debate. Do jinns have prophet or is it a human prophet? As we find in Surah Al-Jinn and Nafar and Jinn and whatever. Putting aside that, this verse actually is saying something. That Allah does not destroy a village and His people are unaware, ghafil, not heedless. What does that mean? That He's saying, look, if you don't know that you're doing wrong, I will never destroy you. I will never punish you. Yes, it's not your fault. But if you know you're doing wrong, then I will destroy you. Now, in existential terms, let's reread this within existential terms. Yes? If I don't know I'm doing wrong, there is no wrong. If I know I'm doing wrong, there is a real wrong. What does that mean? What that means is that damnation only comes when the individual is aware that they are wrong and they persist. It's a self-imposed situation. Now, if we were to look at the destruction of a village, and its immediate causes, you will see hadith literature that where people do this, there are earthquakes. Where people do this, there are floods. It's associating the sin of the people and reciprocation of the natural world in a like manner. When people do this, there's plentiful rain. When people do this, there's plentiful fruits. If you wake up in the morning prayer and do salah and whatever else, you get increasing risk. What does that mean? That we ourselves are feeding into the world for it to respond to us. Now, when a person is unaware that they're doing sin, the world is not driven by that sin in that first fashion. Yes? So I always say this. Sin is not determined by the act. The quality of the sin is not determined by the act, but it's determined by the attitude of the sinner towards it. You will find a person who is so unaware about the gravity of sin, they won't face any damnation. And somebody who understands it faces damnation. Somebody doesn't understand music to be sin. They have no adverse effect. Somebody understands music to be the great transgression. Immediately, the sin will be apparent on their soul. So, sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Sorry, Lord.
Can I ask a question, Shaykh?
Yes.
With reference to two verses, two parts of two